Okay, in accordance with our rules, each testifier will be allowed 2 minutes. There's a beeper that will beep briefly when testifiers have 30 seconds remaining and will beep again at the end of the 2-minute period. At that time, we ask testifiers to please conclude their remarks. Additionally, SBOE rules state there will be no applause, outbursts, or other demonstration or disruption by any spectators during the entirety of the meeting. I thank you in advance for attending today and providing your feedback, as well as your adherence to the SBOE rules.
I am a grandparent of Texas students, former teacher, principal, curriculum writer, and adjunct professor of education. I'm here today to urge board members to vote against adopting the OER curriculum as written. As a person of faith, I find that the curriculum presents an emphasis on one particular religious view. It's inaccurate in many instances and is confusing to children who've been brought up with different beliefs.
My name is Susan Nyack, and I'm testifying against the proposed TEA Elementary Reading and Language Arts curriculum from Open Education Resources. I strongly oppose adopting this curriculum. Sorry. This is very emotional to me. It was awful going through the curriculum. There are so many instances here that were bad, just outright bad. As a parent, wanting to bring my child up in a way that is moral and ethical, but not necessarily in the exact Christian faith in these materials, it was appalling to go through it. I'm a parent of a child who graduated from my AISD. I have nieces and nephews still in AISD, and this is not the curriculum for them or anybody else. Religion and faith should be addressed within the family, not as part of the public school system. I did find one, I've submitted a lot of comments, but one that's just particularly egregious was in grade 5, unit 9, Juneteenth and beyond. The lesson is about MLK's letter from Birmingham jail. And the two directives are to describe the evidence of faith in MLK Jr.'s letter and to describe his belief that there must be law and order even if the laws are unjust. And we are asking fifth graders to make that conclusion, which is absolutely the opposite of what MLK was trying to say in that letter. And it is extremely, and then that lesson is then followed by an entire lesson on the book of Daniel, I guess because the letter does mention Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but it also, in that same section, references the Roman Empire, Socrates, the Boston Tea Party, freedom fighters against Hitler and Hungary. None of them get an entire lesson on a biblical story. So this is just one of the examples. In general, the curriculum often promotes Christianity and Judaism over all other religions, and as the last commenter said, mistakes the Jewish faith in so many instances. These stories are presented as historical and they're not appropriate for children. Thank you.
I'm also a grandparent of 3 young Texas kids here, all grandsons under the age of 9, and I'm a member of Grandparents for Public Schools. I'm testifying against these Bible stories that they're trying to insert into the kindergarten through 5th grade, and I'm against it for a couple reasons. First of all, I'm against it because it's not age appropriate. We've got 2nd graders learning about the book of Esther, and in the book of Esther, which is part of the reading material here, or part of the teacher's guide, it doesn't correspond to what's in this book. I think this is the official book for Christians. It's the Bible, but it doesn't match what's in this teaching material. So they can't even line up the materials right. I think a lot of times the way this was rolled out was coercive, and it basically tried to trick people into believing this wasn't what it was really talking about. There are a lot of things that are incorrect here, and I think we should oppose this. But more importantly, hey, listen, Governor Abbott has spoken very strongly about parental choice. He wants to give parents choice. Well, this curriculum does exactly the opposite. It basically pigeonholes the kids and tries to trick them into a sort of a distorted version of Christianity. Let's listen to Governor Abbott in this case, and let's make sure parents have a choice and we don't put distorted biblical passages inside of curriculums for kids, okay? So let's go with Governor Abbott. You parents should have the choice to pick what kind of religion you want to raise your kids.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Vane. I'm a parent of 2 Texas public school graduates and a proud Jewish mom. I have serious concerns about this proposed curriculum. I want to be clear that studying the Bible from a literary perspective has long been part of many high school classes when students have the foundation to consider symbolism and allegory. But this is not that. It overwhelmingly favors Christianity, erasing other religions or relegating them to token status. It is also wildly problematic in its depictions of Jews and Judaism. Let's take the Queen Esther story, one of the few mentions of Jewish people. The version of the story in this curriculum characterizes Jews as odd and disloyal, fueling anti-Semitic tropes and depicting us as the other. A related activity has elementary schoolers rolling dice, just like Haman in the story, who is deciding the dates on when to kill Jews. This is shocking, offensive, and just plain wrong. Do we ask elementary schoolers to pretend to be Hitler? We do not. Elsewhere, the curriculum asks students to glowingly imagine being a crusader, glossing over the crusaders' murder of Jews and Muslims. I share many members' concerns here about the lack of transparency around this curriculum's creation, even after multiple questions. It's hard not to wonder whether the goal here is to teach children to read or to teach them to follow Christianity. There is much you can do to right the ship. I urge you to amend this curriculum to correct inaccuracies and eliminate role-playing activities that hinge on hatred of Jews.
Still, the curriculum is overly focused on classical texts, which are often developmentally inappropriate and fail to engage our diverse student population. This lack of representation limits exposure to different cultures and perspectives, hindering students' learning. With 74% of Texas public school students being non-white, our resources must reflect the diversity of our classrooms. Our students deserve to see themselves reflected in their learning materials, not just through appearances, but through stories that resonate with their lives. The current curriculum sometimes represents other cultures and races, but through the lens of trauma-based experiences. It fails to represent different lived and current experiences, perpetuating a narrow and often harmful view of diversity.
We have serious immediate concerns regarding religious bias in this curriculum. Specifically, we have determined that the curriculum favors Christianity and has embedded religious messaging in the reading and language arts curriculum that makes it unsalvageable. Rather than focusing on reading and language arts, we have determined that the curriculum often reads as biblical history. As a specific example, in the grade 3 Unit 4 activity book, TEA wrote to parents on page 10, quote, "This week, your student will be reading about the building of Rome on the banks of the Tiber River, the mythical Roman gods and goddesses, the Roman Republic, and the Punic Wars," end quote. However, on page 100, they wrote, quote, "They will read excerpts from the books of Matthew, Luke, and Acts in the Bible that describe the origin and spread of Christianity throughout the Roman Empire and the persecution faced by early Christians." We observed how mythical was only used in reference to the Roman gods and goddesses, while no descriptor that indicates that Christianity is a belief system precedes the second excerpt.
My husband and I are raising our children in the Catholic faith. We attend Mass, say grace at mealtime, and our daughter recently celebrated her first Holy Communion. We are grateful to live in a country where we are free to do this. We do not need, and in fact do not want, our children to receive biblical instruction in their public school. As parents, we have the right to control the faith messaging that our children receive without interference from the government. The OER curriculum crosses the line of teaching religion as opposed to teaching about religion. My expertise in early and middle childhood development tells me that elementary children are too young to distinguish between secular material and faith claims. Furthermore, the curriculum fails to prove a clear secular purpose for inclusion of biblical reading. Having worked extensively in schools, I am keenly aware of the religious diversity present in our classrooms. The OER curriculum's overwhelming focus on Christianity would not only violate the religious freedom rights of children and families of other belief systems, it will cause them to feel unwelcome in their neighborhood schools.
My name is Courtney Toretto, and I serve as the Policy Director for the Central Division of the Anti-Defamation League. Since 1913, the mission of ADL has been to stop the defamation of the Jewish people and to secure justice and fair treatment to all. Today, ADL is a global leader in fighting anti-Semitism, exposing extremism, delivering anti-bias education, and fighting the spread of hate in our communities and online. I am also a parent with a child in the Texas public education system. Over the summer, ADL volunteers pored over thousands of pages of the proposed curriculum and identified a number of concerns regarding the manner in which Christianity and specific Bible lessons were incorporated. ADL recognizes that there is an important difference between teaching about religion in public schools in an objective, neutral, and multifaceted way, which is often geared, for example, toward teaching students about the role of various religions in historical, cultural, literary, and social development of the United States and other nations, and teaching religion, which amounts to religious indoctrination or practice. On numerous occasions, the curriculum appears to cross the line into the latter category. In addition, the curriculum seemingly fails to achieve the goal of ensuring that students are appropriately introduced to multiple different religious traditions in an objective, non-indoctrinating way. References to Christianity far overshadow mentions of other religious traditions. Most of the limited mentions of Judaism, for example, are only included to explain the foundational elements of Christianity. References to or content regarding other religions such as Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, or Sikhism, for example, are nearly non-existent.
This curriculum and its teacher's guide preach Christianity to elementary school kids just learning to read who have not yet developed critical thinking. It goes beyond teaching children about religion, and it favors Christianity. I believe that no one but my husband and I and our minister should be teaching our children religion. That is our parental right. This curriculum makes it harder for parents trying to raise their children in the religion of their choice.
I hold a master's in education and worked in the public school system for a long time. More recently, I went to seminary and graduated with an MDiv from Perkins. I'm a candidate for ordination in the United Methodist Church, and I work for the interfaith organization Faith Commons. So I have overlapping professional and personal experience relevant to this conversation. I'm here today to urge board members to vote against adopting the OER curriculum. As a Christian mother, I am offended that the Christian faith is even a part of this new curriculum. In reading through the curriculum, I'm disgusted by the ways in which the stories from my scripture are misinterpreted and misrepresented. It is one thing for public schools to teach about the many religious traditions we have in this country, but if schools are going to teach about religious traditions, even my own, then the lessons cannot be written in a way that promotes any religious faith claim as true, and all religions must be given equal weight. Who wrote this curriculum? I applaud those board members who have been asking this question of the TEA. As you know, the commissioner has refused to answer this question, and to me that is quite telling. It's clear in reading the curriculum that those who wrote it have a distinctly fundamentalist Christian view of both the Bible and American history. I don't want my 8-year-old or anyone else's kid indoctrinated into that worldview.
In a lesson under grade 2, Fighting for a Cause, teachers are directed to use the book of Esther for a lesson on standing up for what is right. In the story of Esther, the king orders the murder of the Jewish people of Persia at the encouragement of his right-hand man, because the Jews were the only people in Persia who didn't prostrate in front of state officials. Casting lots gave justification for murdering the Jewish people en masse. And in the support section of that unit, teachers are then instructed to reread the phrase casting lots as like a game of chance, kind of like rolling dice. Then it was asked for students to roll a number on a die from 1 to 6 and ask them to raise their hand if their number was called. When you take the context of Megillus Esther, a story of Haman plotting the mass murder of the Jewish people and fixing Purim lots, this turns this exercise into kind of a twisted game of fate, where the Jewish people's murder becomes the outcome.
Being Christian means identifying as a follower of Jesus Christ and focusing on the personal relationship with God. Being religious has a broader meaning, including adherence to beliefs, rituals, practices within a specific organized religion. What is being pushed through Texas Gateway OER in public schools is essentially religion. I oppose to the idea of anyone, particularly a chaplain from any religion, teaching their religious views to impressionable, innocent children. It is important to acknowledge that everyone has the right to oppose religious views, just as everyone has the right to hold and express their own.
Good morning. My name is Rabbi Nancy Kasten, and I serve as Chief Relationship Officer for Faith Commons, an interfaith organization that works to lift up faith voices in the public square for the common good. I'm also a member of the board of Texas Impact. I've traveled here from Dallas to testify against the curriculum that you are considering adopting for K-8 language arts and reading. I am an American, a Jew, and a person who believes in the power of education to bring people together to learn with and from one another. I rely on the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment to ensure that our government and its institutions serve people of all faiths without favoring one religion over another or any religion over no religion. Texans rely on the State Board of Education to uphold the Establishment Clause in our public schools. This doesn't mean that our schools can't teach about religious texts or offer courses in comparative religion. But when they do, they must be taught with a curriculum that is unbiased and has balanced coverage of all major religions. Students must also be old enough to understand the difference between history and narrative. Most children in kindergarten through 5th grade are not capable of this level of discernment. In the politically charged communities we live in today, this K-8 curriculum is especially dangerous. We've seen anti-Semitic and other racist and xenophobic language used to incite rhetorical, emotional, and physical violence, particularly in schools and places of worship.
You can read rich literature, you can learn character traits through biblical stories, and you can understand more later where our law comes from, natural law versus man-made law. There's so much that the Bible offers as background to an education in America.
When you speak about anti-Semitic language, as I've read through there, tell me, can you be a little more specific about some specific anti-Semitic language that you're citing?
Well, there are references to Jews and to Hebrews and to Jewish communities in other countries, in the Holy Land, in Rome, that portray Jews as opponents of Christ, as also there are images of Jews as being very preoccupied with money and other images that have been used with.
Okay, and by the way, it says that there are certain things that are historical. It says that the Apostle Paul was dragged out of town by the Jews and stoned, and I mean those are facts.
Well, again, I think what we read in the Bible, we have different approaches to our history. We see those incidences in different contexts.
Sitting here in this room, I'm kind of shocked. I'm around a bunch of educators, and I can't believe the lack of ability to understand how misinformed many people are. We're all products of the public schools. We are all people who have been mostly a part of the public schools since the Bible was taken out in 1962. And I think we're seeing the ramifications of that. We have discipline problems. We have emotional needs, mental needs. Families are falling apart because education used to be, from the beginning in our nation, about teaching wisdom and virtue of the Bible. It was about critical thinking and high expectations.
Back to our children. Let's not showcase any more differences for kids than we have to. To summarize, all reading materials should be on grade level, and religious literature should be removed to reduce teacher-parent coordination.
The proposed curriculum has an underlying Christian bias that it is more inherently moral or correct than other religions are as presented. We cannot conflate one religion as being what is always correct.
When we look at some of the things that we've got in our curriculum these days, the pornography that's in there, when I worked on the health curriculum, I learned things that I shouldn't have seen, and I'm a grown married woman. And we look at the woke indoctrination of our children, this will be a good change. So I would encourage you to adopt this curriculum. Thank you so much.
Do you believe that the Bible is the only source of wisdom and virtue?
Well, yes, I do. And our country was founded on that wisdom and virtue. That's why 38% of the largest source is the Bible. So that's why it fits to be taught in the schools.
Well, let me stop you there because we heard earlier, and we know that our founders were not all Christian. And around this table, members of this board have talked about how parents are the first educators of any child.
Yes, but we're not talking about...
Okay. Just a minute. Not all parents in this state are Christian. Okay. However, there are many parents that belong to other religious organizations, that are other religious faith-based communities that also teach virtue and wisdom. Would you mean to tell me that those parents are incorrect in how they teach wisdom and virtue?
Well, let's say in 1962, the Bible was taken out, and I'm answering your question. The Bible was taken out, and now we see the state of the schools, and it's not good. So we removed virtue and wisdom from the schools, and so what I'm saying is that this is not a teaching of Christianity, it's a teaching of wisdom and virtue that our nation was founded on, and it was taught up until 1962. And if you think that religion has not been taught in schools, every religion but Christianity has been taught in schools since 1962.
My name is Jonathan Davis, and I am a Baptist pastor and a seminary professor from Georgetown, Texas. I'm here today not only as a religious leader, but also as a parent of 3 children who attend public schools in our great state. Today, I strongly urge you to vote against the adoption of the OER curriculum. As a pastor, I deeply value the role of religion in personal and community life. However, I firmly believe that public schools are not the place for religious instruction. However, I firmly think that our public education system should be a space where students of all backgrounds can learn and grow without the imposition of any particular religious doctrine. The proposed curriculum overwhelmingly focuses on Christianity, promoting faith claims as true and distorting historical facts. This approach not only privileges a particular kind of Christianity, but also violates the fundamental principle of the Golden Rule, doing unto others as we would have done unto us. America is not a Christian nation. It is a nation of diverse beliefs, and our public schools should reflect that diversity. Texas Baptist pastor George W. Truett once stated, "Christ's religion needs no prop of any kind from any worldly source, and to the degree that it is thus supported is a millstone hanged about its neck. This curriculum, by intertwining religious teaching with public education, risks becoming that millstone. Furthermore, the lack of transparency regarding the authorship of this curriculum raises significant concerns. Parents have the right to know what their children are being taught, and this curriculum's development process has not honored that right. In closing, I ask you to put the educational needs of all Texas students first. Public schools should not force faith-based Bible study on students."
I'm an active member of the school's PTA and DEI community group. I'm also a Christian. I'm here today because the new proposed reading curriculum is not only unconstitutional, it's unethical. And I, along with many other Highland Park families, urge board members to vote against the OER curriculum. Some of their testimony is attached to mine in your printed versions. Texas is one of the most diverse states in our country, ranked second, in fact, behind California. How lucky are we? A diverse population, a diverse community is something beautiful and something to be celebrated. A blessing, some might say. Even more than that, it is who we are as Americans, who we are as Texans, a country and state of immigrants that have brought a wide variety of faiths and religious practices to our lands. As representatives of one of the most diverse states in our country, and because the proposed curriculum overwhelmingly focuses on Christianity over other major religions and distorts history by promoting one set of faith claims as fact, I'm sure the board agrees that voting against this curriculum is the right thing to do. The right thing to do not only because the proposed curriculum would leave hundreds of thousands of Texas public school students to feel less than and not worthy of representation, but because the proposed curriculum is illegal, plain and simple. It violates our country's Establishment Clause, as it very clearly favors one religion over another.
I am a United Methodist pastor and a member of Pastors for Texas Children. The advisory board for the OER curriculum, responsible for ensuring that it is suitable for the age of the students being taught, is composed of 10 members. This board contains no public school teachers, but does include actress Danica McKellar and politician Ben Carson, who once said that Darwin's theory of evolution was influenced by Satan. Only one member, Senator Rubio, appears to have any public classroom experience. He was an educator and coach for 5.5 years, over 40 years ago. Only one member, Dr. Vaughn, appears to have any expertise in teaching children how to read. Looking at just one lesson in the first grade ELAR curriculum, Lesson 2, Unit 8, I see that in 60 minutes, 6-year-olds are expected to be educated in the following: taxation without representation, the Sons of Liberty, the Boston Tea Party, the First Continental Congress, George Washington, Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, the concept of boycotting goods, the categories of loyalists and patriots, plus 5 vocabulary words and 5 phrases. The exit ticket prompt reads, on an index card, respond to the following with a sentence. How and why did the Sons of Liberty respond to the taxes the British Parliament was making the colonists pay? The curriculum instructs teachers that answers will vary, but students should write that they responded with the Boston Tea Party because they did not think they should be taxed when they were not represented in Parliament. Members of the board, I hope you can see how ridiculous these expectations are for 6-year-olds.
Would you agree, just in your pastoral role and education background, would you agree that the Bible is an accurate historical document?
I think that Christians are not a monolith, and there are
No,
pieces
sir,
of the
that's not what
Bible
I
that are
asked.
not historic.
I'm not asking about religion. I'm asking, do you, yes or no, do you agree that the Bible is an accurate historical document?
The Bible is not a history book.
So you don't view the Bible as an accurate representation of what's happened in world history?
I think the Bible is a revelation of God's
No, sir, it's
will
yes
for
or no.
humanity.
No, sir, it's yes or no.
It's
a
not a
or
yes or no
question.
question. I can't answer it with a yes or no.
So you do not believe that the Bible is an accurate historical?
Didn't say that. I said
book?
the Bible is not a textbook, and the Bible is not a
I'm
history
not asking the
book.
textbook. I'm asking according to the historical value of the Bible. Do you believe, or is it your summation that the Bible represents an accurate historical document?
It's
Is
not
it-
a yes or no question, and I can't give a yes
So
or
you're
no
refusing
answer.
to answer. Okay, thank you.
Any other members? Mr. Maynard?
Mr. Davis,
Nobody's in line to ask a question.
you noted in your testimony that there are faith claims that are being stated as true. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? What faith claims that are being represented as being fact? What is that?
So my understanding of the curriculum is that
Have you read it? Have you actually read it?
I have not read the whole.
You've not actually read it.
curriculum.
Okay, that's good to know. But so what are you claiming that are faith claims that are being portrayed as being true?
Sure. So a lot of the Bible passages as they are presented in the curriculum, according to what I have read, including, for instance, a lesson that takes, I believe, kindergartners or very young students through the creation narratives in Genesis, asks them to recount the days of creation. And many Christians do not take a literal view of Genesis, as do many Jewish people. And so to recount those actual days of creation as historic fact is a faith claim. It is a truth claim, not historic fact. It's one interpretation of the Bible, and the state should not be in the business of providing biblical interpretation to my children or any other child in the state.
What unit is that in? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head.
You
sir.
don't know? Okay.
I don't.
Okay. And
I could get back to you with that information.
yeah, and so how do you feel about the story of the Good Samaritan?
Well, I think the story of the Good Samaritan is one of my favorite stories. But again, I think there are different ways to highlight the same theme in a school curriculum that is funded with taxpayer dollars. And to infuse Bible lessons into public school classrooms violates the Constitution. The Establishment Clause has already been mentioned today. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And with some of the way that the curriculum, in my understanding, presents the material, it presents the material in such a way that it assumes or puts forward the idea that Christianity is a favored religion in our country, that Christianity, one must be a Christian to be moral, that one must be a Christian to be a good American, and those things are simply not true.
So if you were driving down the road, you had a blowout, and you had to reach in there, and you had to get your tire out, and this guy pulls up in a big pickup, has a hydraulic jack, has an impact wrench, and changes your tire. What do we call that guy?
One way to say it would be a good Samaritan, sure.
In fact, there are Good Samaritan laws. So are you saying that because that has a Christian origin that we should purge it from our
vernacular?
Culture? Yeah.
No, that's not what I mean by what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you take the curriculum.
Know the origin of that? Do you think it's bad for children to know the origin of that term?
No, of course not. I'm a pastor.
Okay.
But I don't think that's the state's place to teach my children.
Testimony. Yeah, that's your testimony. You're saying that you don't want children to know the origin of that.
You're putting words in my mouth. I said I don't think it's the state's place to teach Bible to children.
And putting words in my mouth is a phrase that comes from the Bible, and you just used it. Thank you. All right.
It's not a theological debate. We're talking about a public school curriculum.
I loved your last comment. This is not a theological debate because this instructional material does not teach theology. It uses the Bible as a cultural and historical reference as required by state law. And so I love your last comment that this is not a theological debate because nobody's teaching Christianity. We're using historical documents. And I don't know, I'm a little appalled that as a pastor, you will not stand up here and say that the Bible is an accurate historical document. That basically, I guess you chalk it up to a fairy tale. So God bless you, sir.
That's not what I said.
Students will read stories from the Bible conveyed as if they were facts. In other words, young students could easily interpret them as literally true. Furthermore, students are likely to hear from adults they respect, including their parents, that the Bible stories they have decided are factual are actually religious myths or simply untrue. In those cases, the state of Texas has spent valuable class time creating dilemmas that elementary school students should not have to deal with. So my request is this: please take the Bible lessons out of the instructional materials and ensure that elementary school curriculum does not promote or endorse any particular religion.
I'm a woman of faith, and our family regularly attends a Christian church together in our community. I'm here today to urge board members to vote against the adopting of OER curriculum for 3 reasons. First, starting in kindergarten, the creation story is taught. The teacher tells the children the book of Genesis explains that after God created the world, he created man in his own image. My family, explaining to kindergartners that God created the world, to me, is teaching Christian theology and truth. And my family is deeply opposed to public school teachers teaching this theology to 5-year-olds. The entire section of kindergarten art crosses the line between teaching about religion and teaching the Bible. And the curriculum overwhelmingly focuses on Christianity over other major religions. Second, each grade level includes Bible studies and scripture readings. My grandchildren have been going to Sunday school all of their lives, and they're very familiar with these stories. But children who've not been brought up in a Christian faith could be at a very distinct disadvantage and may feel confused about these stories or at risk of feeling less than or othered by not being familiar with them. These stories should be taught in Christian Sunday schools or in Christian private schools should parents choose to send their children there, not by teachers in public school systems. And last, the letter that goes out to parents doesn't in any way inform them that their children will be reading Christian scripture or studying stories from the Christian Bible. There are many other religions that have equal standing in our community, yet none of their religious books are referenced or studied.
The proposed K-5 English language arts curriculum puts a significant emphasis on Christianity, ignoring students of diverse faiths. One key concern is the lack of balance in how religions are presented. The curriculum developers claim that it includes the content from different religious traditions. However, in reality, the overwhelming focus is on Christianity. According to an independent review, the coverage of Christianity is so pervasive that other major religions receive very limited attention, and Judaism is only represented in its biblical form. There's almost no material on contemporary Judaism or other faith traditions like Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, which many Texas students practice. This exclusion creates an atmosphere where students from non-Christian backgrounds like myself feel invisible.
My name is Lisa Jacob. I'm a former pastor, I'm a faith-rooted organizer with the Baptist Joint Committee, and I'm a Texan. The reality is I love my state and I love my faith tradition. I love the stories of the Bible, and I believe that people can experience healing and life through these stories. But believing and valuing my faith does not give me license to institutionalize my religion above others, as is the case with this OER curriculum. Teaching about religion is not a problem, especially when it's clear that Christian stories are among many other faith traditions and perspectives. But that is not the case with this curriculum. Unfortunately, this proposed curriculum disproportionately speaks about Christianity ad nauseum and thus implicitly elevates its value. There are multiple instances of truth claims in relation to biblical stories. And lastly, many elementary students, particularly the youngest ones, such as kindergartners, do not have the developmental ability to discern the difference between one religious community's belief and an absolute truth as taught by their authority figure, their teacher.
My name is Upni Kaur, and I am the Senior Education Manager at the Sikh Coalition, the nation's largest Sikh civil rights organization. I'm here not only as a member of the Sikh community, but also as a proud product of public education here in Texas. Based on my experiences, I oppose the initiative by the Texas Education Agency to teach the Bible in our public schools, and I believe that doing so will significantly harm our public education system. When a curriculum is not representative of the various faiths, spiritual, and ethical traditions of its state, it takes away the opportunity for students to develop a genuine understanding of practices and perspectives outside their own. Sikh students know the devastating impact of this all too well. According to a 2024 study done by my organization, nearly 8 in 10 Sikh students report having experienced behavior categorized as bullying. And half of Sikh students say that educational materials, holiday policies, and schools and sports policies are not at all inclusive of their religion. This study includes students in the Texas public education system. One of the best ways to keep Sikh students safe from such bullying is through meaningful and constitutionally appropriate education. This is because intentional inclusivity in the classroom can demystify misconceptions about our faith and illuminate points of connection and shared history with the broader community. This curriculum, however, seems to do the opposite. It creates a space in which not only is their religion not taught about, but they are simultaneously expected to learn about another religion different from theirs as the ultimate truth.
Hi, my name is Sandeep, and I'm a parent from Round Rock, Texas. I'm here today to urge board members to vote against adopting the OER curriculum. As a parent to Sikh kids, I know all too well the impact that the lack of religious literacy on Sikh faith, traditions, and identity has on them. The emphasis of this curriculum is on Christianity, and the complete omission of other world religions such as Sikhism is unacceptable, and it only further perpetuates their experiences of being excluded and isolated. If this curriculum intends to provide all a well-rounded education to our students, it fails to do so. For it to be such, it requires teaching about how various religions have contributed to our history and not just limiting to one community or a singular version of history. Without constitutionally and age-appropriate lesson plans on the communities that make up Texas being included, it leaves students from communities such as Sikhs misunderstood and targeted, while simultaneously failing to prepare students as a whole to engage with society in the future.
I have a question. Why does the TEA keep rebranding this OER curriculum? First it was Amplify Texas, Texas Open Education Resources, now branded as Bluebonnet Texas. Is not it is as it is being marketed. As we've heard today from veteran Texas educators, It's not developmentally appropriate, and it is not high-quality instructional materials. As we also clearly see from today's testimony, there's been a shift in our education system away from academics to values, beliefs, and behaviors, which is one of the key intentions of the National Common Core Standards, which our TEKS are aligned to.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Mary Elizabeth Castle, and I'm the Director of Government Relations for Texas Values. Texas Values has consistently testified at the Texas State Board of Education for the First Amendment rights of students and to protect the instruction of key historical figures like Moses and the documents like the Ten Commandments. Unfortunately, what we are talking about today is not a new controversy that is unique to HB 1605 or the adoption of OER materials for English and language arts. What is at issue is a curriculum that chooses to use references to the Bible and religion being attacked for the mere fact of being religious and referencing the Bible.
My name is Mara Nathan. I am the senior rabbi at Temple Beth El in San Antonio, a Reformed Jewish congregation. I'm also the mother of 3 children, all of whom have attended or currently attend Texas public schools. I stand here today asking you to vote against this curriculum unless it is revised by a diverse group of educators that represent different religions and religious perspectives, making sure to include educators who have expertise in teaching balanced information about world religions to young students.
Existing curriculums have resulted in our kids not being able to read, having no knowledge of history. More importantly, they have no knowledge of the foundation of Western civilization. Let's be clear. The Bible is the single most impactful piece of literature, period. It is the single biggest influence on the formation of Western civilization. One cannot understand the development of Western civilization without understanding the Bible. Any denial of that fact is just silly. For example, studying art in Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, which is in one of the units, without reading or knowing the story of the Last Supper, simply removes all meaning of this classical piece of art. Teaching biblical history has long been part of education and never controversial until the modern left decided to ban all references of the Bible from the public sphere.
Texas parents did not consent for their children to be exposed and harmed by the TEA's pilot program Amplify. Texas children should never, ever be used as guinea pigs for a curriculum, especially one owned by the TEA. This is immoral, unethical, and in my opinion, criminal.
Hello, my name is Rubinder Kaur like an apple core. I'm a parent from Cedar Park, Texas, and a member of the Sikh community. I'm here today to urge the board members to vote against adopting the OER curriculum. As a religious person myself, I believe teaching about religion in our classroom is important. However, this curriculum's approach does so in a manner that excludes my religion alongside many others that are present in the great state of Texas.
My parents did not send me to Sunday school to learn how to read. My parents did not send me to E.A. Sigler Elementary in Plano in 1965 to learn about Jesus. Incorporating Bible stories into the reading curriculums of our public school classrooms is a not so thinly veiled attempt at indoctrination. It removes the rights of parents to bring their children up in the faith context of their choosing and prevents a skewed view of Christianity forward as the only possible faith choice. That is un-American, and in a state like Texas that values independence and freedom, a curriculum like this should be thrown out of this building.
I have focused on how the creation stories, and there are 3 distinct creation stories, what they are and how they are being presented. One of these is Genesis 1, the 7 days narrative, and the other is the textually second story of Genesis 2, the story of the creation of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. In the Christian Bible, the order of creation within each of these two stories differs. They cannot literally be fused together as they are in this curriculum. Missing from the curriculum is the wonderful story found in Proverbs 8, where wisdom acts as the master builder of creation under God's supervision. It's important to remember these stories originated in the Jewish tradition. I'd like to respond to a previous speaker who spoke of the connection of the Bible and the law. If you approve this curriculum, you will be approving the teaching of text which is not compatible with current Texas law. In Genesis 2:7, as well as Ezekiel 37, life begins with nephesh. The renowned Hebrew scholar Robert Alter defines nephesh as breath, life breath, and essential self. The concept of life beginning at breath, taken literally, contradicts current law based on conception and heartbeat.
I personally believe that there is a wonderful rubric that I believe this SBOE put together that all curriculum is going to bounce off of. Have any of you in the audience seen the adopted suitability rubric that all Texas curriculum must adhere to going forward? This OER curriculum adheres to this rubric. This rubric will prevent any woke ideology, CRT, or sexually explicit or age-inappropriate materials from being taught in the classroom. I have not heard the rubric discussed in this building today. From what I have found, there are approximately 90 Bible lessons referenced in the K through 5 OLR classes in the OER curriculum. Gone are the days of the indoctrinating our children with woke ideologies. This OER does get back to classical education with no CRT, no porn. It's pro-Texas, it's pro-America. It uses high rigor and also uses the Bible as a textbook for historical and truthful instruction.
You just said in your testimony, gone are the days of woke ideology.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
is woke ideology?
It's the CRT, the critical race theory that's been in schools. It's the smut books that have been in schools. It's the inappropriate sexual content that has been in schools that we have been fighting against in the Round Rock School District and Leander School District in Williamson County. Gone are those days, because I have read extensively this rubric that you guys put together, and it will not allow that curriculum to exist any longer in the schools.
I'm here to oppose the current open education resources curriculum for K through 5 reading and language arts because it fosters Christianity above all other religions. This is the opposite of religious freedom that the curriculum claims to promote. One particularly troubling example of this slanted approach is an instructional unit for kindergarten that is supposed to be about art appreciation. The unit includes a lesson on the creation story from the book of Genesis. In the review section for this lesson, students are not drilled on the art of the creation story, whatever that is, but on details of the biblical account as if it were a verifiable historical fact. This is not art appreciation. This is not neutral teaching. This is indoctrination in the sacred text of one religious tradition. And the lesson even misrepresents the biblical account. According to the lesson, God created animals before he created the first man and woman. That is, in fact, the story in the first chapter of Genesis, but in the second chapter of Genesis, after the creation of man in verse 7, verses 18 and 19 clearly state, "Then the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. So out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air and brought them to the man." So the Bible says that man was created first, then the animals. It also says the exact opposite. How do you explain that to a 5-year-old? If the authors of this Christian-focused curriculum cannot present their own biblical account accurately, then they are obviously not qualified to write curriculum about other religious traditions. And none of this has anything to do with art appreciation.
I do want to talk a little bit about why you have to have religion in our curriculum and our studies here in the United States. We were built on a biblical foundation. That is part of our history.
The United States has a fascinating history with progressive ideas that were unprecedented until that time. Like why the Founding Fathers demanded a wall of separation between church and state to erect a government of, by, and for we the people, as opposed to being dedicated to some god or religious denomination like every other country's constitution was until then. Yet Texas wants to teach that our country was based on a covenant between God or Moses, or that it was based on the Bible. No, students should learn why our system of government was made to be exactly the opposite of the type of rule associated with the character of Moses. The U.S. and Texas, too, each have such a rich history that there's no need to mention Middle Eastern mythology. If you must bring up the Bible at all, then you should note how Jefferson Davis cited the Bible's endorsement of slavery as a reason for waging the Civil War to defend slavery. Otherwise, Texas social studies should not refer to the Bible, or certainly not to the tales told therein, not just because those stories are irrelevant, but because that's ancient history. In fact, that's not history at all. Even Christian biologists admit that Adam and Eve are genetically impossible. Archaeologists know that what Mesopotamian myths influenced the Garden of Eden, an entirely metaphorical fable with not one word of literal truth to it. Likewise, anthropologists know that the Tower of Babel is just a folk tale. Even rabbinical scholars now admit that the Exodus never happened. More historians agree that Moses never existed, and all natural science disproves the global flood. So let's teach history instead, real people and real events that really happened, with lessons and values to be learned from that. We have enough real American history that we don't need to confuse it with an infusion of foreign fantasy folklore. Thank you.
I have a dollar bill, and on this dollar bill are the words, "In God We Trust." When we learn about the legal tender of the United States of America, we must explain that our founders created our nation as a Judeo-Christian nation. We also learn that the Bible was a foundational document and that our founders trusted in God as their ultimate authority. As a result, our legal tender contains the words, "In God We Trust."
Just to correct a point of fact, "In God We Trust" was adopted in 1956. Eisenhower wanted to poke an eye into the Russians. And it was E pluribus unum before that.
I stand corrected. Thank you so much.
I would like to take a moment to address the biblical passages. We know that public schools are required to teach the Declaration of Independence next week during Constitution Week. And these documents refer to God as our creator, who made all men equal and endowed us with unalienable rights. This is the God of the Bible, and the Bible is a historical document, instrumental in our founding and worthy of being incorporated in Texas children's education. I am personally pleased with the biblical passages as historical references and encourage the board members to not shy away from their inclusion in the curriculum. Please vote yes.
Education has always been a foundational issue for my family, and teaching has been a serious calling for us. This is carried forth in our religious lives. This November, I'll be ordained at Royal Lane Baptist Church in Dallas. My Baptist parents taught children's Sunday school classes, and my brother is currently teaching children at his Baptist church. My family has always believed in public education and our Christian faith, but as a Baptist, I lean into the work of my ancestors to keep church and state separate. Our Baptist religious ancestors realized the danger of the government imposing influence on religious beliefs. As I look at the proposed OER materials for Texas, I'm discouraged to see a strong Christian influence. This has nothing to do with whether these stories have meaning from my personal faith. The struggle is whether these stories have a place in our public schools.
I'm a proud Texan, having attended Texas public schools for elementary, middle, high school, and college. Today, I work at Temple Bethel, the largest Reformed synagogue in South Texas, where I have committed to Tikkun Olam, or repairing the world. I'm also part of the leadership team of the Religious Action Center's statewide project, RAC Texas. Together, we organize Reformed Jews from 39 congregations from across the state, representing over 12,000 households and around 40,000 individuals, working to build a more just and compassionate society for all Texans. This deep sense of responsibility, both as a Jew and as an active civic and participant, compels me to address the proposed curriculum, which I urge you to reject. This is not just a professional or civic issue. The new curriculum violates the very values we teach our children about respect, inclusion, and understanding. As a Jewish Texan, I find this curriculum dangerous, inappropriate, and rooted in anti-Semitic narratives that threaten not just Jewish students, but the fabric of the school system as well. I won't highlight the examples that we already mentioned before, because I don't want to be repetitive, but these are not harmless omissions or misinterpretations of the Jewish people. They're dangerous distortions that can plant the seeds of prejudice and division in the minds of our youngest, most impressionable Texans. I stand here not against the teaching of religious beliefs, but for the responsible, age-appropriate, and respectful teaching of all religions. We can teach students about the Bible and other religious texts, but we must do so in the way that distinguishes beliefs from facts, gives voice to diverse perspectives, and honors the dignity of every community member in order to foster a more understanding, not hate. In Judaism, we hold education in the highest regard. The Reform Movement's policy on education states that our commitment to providing all children with high-quality, appropriate public school education. All Texans, Jewish or not, deserve this. Our children deserve schools that uplift them, that challenge them to think critically, and that teach them to embrace diversity, not fear it.
I worked with the other Jewish federations to read through the curriculum from the lens of Jewish parents, and we found many cases where the depictions of Jews, Judaism, and the Hebrew Bible were inaccurate, inappropriate, disturbing, and even anti-Semitic. In many cases, the curriculum misguides students in ways that goes against Jewish parents' rights to teach children their own religious belief systems. I wanted to pull up some examples because today people were saying that in order for the curriculum to go against the law, it would have to be coercive. In grade 3, unit 4, Ancient Rome Teacher Guide, the children are taught that Mary found favor with God, and the angel explained that she would have a son who would be called Jesus, and that this was the predicted Messiah. I'm going to get back to this word predicted in a minute. The teacher is then instructed to ask the children, how will Mary's life change after the angel spoke? Mary is going to become a mother. She will have a son. He will be the Messiah. And later, there's another point where the teachers are asked to ask the children a question, what was the most important part of this section? And the answer may vary, it says, but should include that the Messiah was born. Let me just say that telling children to repeat that Jesus is the Messiah or that the Messiah is born is a profession of Christian faith and is not something that Jewish people actually believe or teach their children. So I ask you this, and there are many other examples in the curriculum where you are erasing Judaism. You refer to the Bible, the Bible, the Bible. It is the Christian Bible that you're referring to. There is a Hebrew Bible, but it is different than the Christian Bible.
We are appalled at the proposed curriculum's inappropriate inclusion and misrepresentation of biblical materials. In my 6 terms in the legislature, I wrote and passed more religious freedom legislation than any Texas legislator before or since. Focused primarily on preserving and promoting the free exercise of religion and protecting it from government interference. The proposed OER K-5 curriculum tramples on that free exercise, and in particular on parents' rights to provide religious education and guidance for their children. My specific objections are the following, and I'd ask you to ask me questions about them afterwards because I can't fit it otherwise into 2 minutes. Number 1, it's totally inappropriate for grades K-5 when children lack sufficient education and background from their families' religious beliefs and observances, and particularly given the lack of training of most teachers to properly handle religious topics. Number 2, it's factually inaccurate in numerous instances. 3, it falsely implies there is only one Bible, and I'd be glad to speak about that. 4, repeatedly improperly presents religious beliefs as historical facts, as was just described in one instance by the previous speaker. It promotes anti-Semitic tropes, and I'd be glad to comment on that one. Ignores comparable potential contributions from religions that make up over half of the world's religious believers. And for these reasons, it clearly violates parents' rights to guide their children's free exercise of their religious beliefs.
My name is Amanda Tyler, and I am Executive Director of the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty. I'm a Baptist lay leader, a graduate of Texas Public Schools, an attorney specializing in the First Amendment religion clauses, and a parent. I share the concerns of many others today that the proposed instructional materials violate the religious freedom of children and their families of all faiths and none by teaching Bible stories to children as young as kindergarten in ways that present the stories in devotional ways and present faith claims as fact. But I'm also concerned about the way that these instructional materials overemphasize the importance of religious freedom relative to other motivations for the colonists and the freedom sought in early American history. The materials cherry-pick founding-era history to tell a one-sided story that overstates the religiosity and specifically the Protestant Christianity of the founders, while ignoring concerns about government intrusion into religion and no establishment principles that led to the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. BJC, the organization I lead, submitted public comment with specific instances of misleading and inaccurate material taught to children in kindergarten, first, and second grades. And during question and answer, I'd be pleased to provide some of those examples. The material reads more like the mythology of America as a Christian nation than an accurate telling of American religious freedom history or a reading of the U.S. Constitution, which is a secular document that makes no reference to God or Christianity. The materials also threaten to limit the importance of a biblical narrative by trying to equate it with a limited version of the founding narrative. For children and teachers who are not Christian, this instructional framework sends the message that they do not fully belong. Thank you.
My name is Mark Chansey. I'm a professor of religious studies at SMU, a church-going Christian, and a Sunday school teacher. I support public schools teaching about religion, including the Bible, in legal, age-appropriate ways. Unfortunately, these materials do not do that. Instead, they promote particular views to our youngest and most impressionable students, violating parents' rights to direct the moral and religious training of their children. I spent the entire summer poring over these materials. They are very religiously biased. They emphasize the Bible more than other religious texts, Jesus more than other religious figures, and Christianity more than other religious traditions. They completely ignore some religious traditions. The way they present Bible stories encourages children to take those stories and their religious claims at face value. That's not teaching about religion. That is promoting particular religious beliefs. When they tell Bible stories, they often embellish, get facts wrong, and make things up. For example, lessons on Esther talk about Esther's faith in God, show her praying, say that she was defending freedom of worship. But when the Bible tells the story of Esther, it never refers to God, faith, prayer, or worship. Lesson writers changed the Bible story to make it more to their liking and added their own religious interpretation. Other lessons on religion and American history have similar flaws. I submitted 89 comments to the TEA, but there were so many errors in this curriculum I did not have time to report them all. I continue to find more.
I am the mother of 2 children who are graduates of Austin ISD schools. I'm a retired educator and have worked in public school administration where I interacted with principals, teachers, and many parents and other stakeholders. I am a lifelong Baptist, serving in various capacities of lay leadership, including deacon, adult Sunday school teacher, spiritual formation committee chair, and many others. I consider my Christian faith to be an integral part of who I am and how I live. And I oppose including Bible in the instructional materials of our public schools on the basis of encroachment of religious liberty from both sides. First, giving such responsibility for teaching Bible to public school teachers is unfair to teachers and to children of all faiths and of no faiths. It is my assumption that these materials are intended to be taught from a Christian perspective, and not all Christians, as we can see from today, agree about interpretation. And certainly people of other faiths or of no faith do not want their children taught Christianity in the public school environment. As a Christian, I want my children, grandchildren, and all children to be taught lessons of faith in the family's chosen place of worship, or no place if that is their choice. And additionally, the argument that such inclusion is just literature is offensive to me. I regard the Bible as more than just literature, and I believe that the state's interpretation of Holy Scripture is inappropriate as public school curriculum and violates our constitutional safeguards against establishment of religion or coercion to religion.